you have to be very careful when you're listening to him because he's no dummy. And he is very calculated in the things he says, and he's got purpose for saying them. Whether you disagree with what he says or not, and I'd say the majority of people I would hope are 80-20, except when you look at the ballot box. But all of that said, when he talks about the Tampa Bay Rays, people ought to listen because he's not going to do a Pritzker. He's not going to act like one of those governors who's neither here nor there, who may put money into a Bears stadium, who may get involved in Kansas City and Chiefs and Royals. What DeSantis did yesterday is I read of a quote that he gave in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, where he said, "I'm confident that the Rays are not headed out of Florida." He then offered the state's help in a new stadium, except he didn't say where the new stadium would be. So what he said was, and by the way, he has zero power to bind state coffers into any project, but it was good to see that Ron DeSantis said, the state will help with infrastructure, but not construction costs for a new stadium. This is according to Mark Topkin of the Tampa Bay Times. Do you know that that is the type of help that we often ask for of the public and that counts as public money? I'm just throwing it out there so there can be no confusion. People who are not paying attention will say, hey, the Yankees and Mets built their ballparks with all private money. And I'll say, horse hockey. The amount of money that New York put into the infrastructure around Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, it's not tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Is there a bee in the house? Here's what infrastructure is. Infrastructure is when you pay people time and a half to work on weekends, or sometimes you pay double shifts to have 4 people sitting around watching them do the work of one thing. And you add exits, take exits away, you move lanes, you add blacktop, you repaint lines, you have sewage lines, you have electric lines. You may have to make a electric substation bigger, stronger, deeper. You may have to do something with sewer lines. You may have to do something with anything that's related to outside the ballpark, which is a huge part of any project. When you're given a budget for construction of a ballpark, the budget you are told publicly is from the nuts in, is what we used to say. And no, we're not talking about those nuts. We're talking about nuts. When you look at a site plan of a ballpark, there is a drawing of the outside of the building. There's a nut required to staple in or hammer in the first piece of building. Of course, it doesn't work that way, but this is the expression. Then anything inside of that counts as construction for the stadium. But if you've ever been to a ballpark, you may realize there's a whole lot of things that happen outside the nut. And what we do is we have the public pay for those, but it all counts as construction budget. And therefore, we have the ability to say privately built, but publicly subsidized. The public has the right to say privately built, and we didn't do anything for them that we wouldn't do for anyone who's building anything. Everyone's got to have power and sewage. Everyone's got to have parking and ingress and egress. Everyone's got to have some green space. Doesn't really work that way. It is a total contribution by the public. And what Ron DeSantis is saying is that the state is willing to help with infrastructure. That is a tremendous, tremendous update because the amount of state money put into Marlins Park, wait for it, cha-ching, zilch, zero. So when Rob Manfred goes and meets with Ron DeSantis back in December, you know what they're talking about. Ron DeSantis comes out and says that meeting was pretty clear. It is Rob Manfred, commissioner of baseball. We are not allowing the team to leave Florida. Here's a quick note for you, Ronnie DeSantis, if you don't mind. Rob Manfred can't stop a team from moving out of Florida. Because if 23 teams are willing to vote for Tampa to move out of Tampa, guess what happens? Tampa moves out of Tampa. Now, of course, the commissioner has his finger on the pulse of his voters. The commissioner doesn't even get a vote. It's not like he has one of the 30 votes and he becomes the 31st vote. There's actually 0 vote. Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, Gary Bettman, between them, they've got 0 votes as it relates to relocation, to expansion, to any of the things that they are the front talking pieces of. That's their job. Their job is to be the public face of a league, and their job is to get consensus among owners and to operate the league, bring in revenue, do national TV deals, national sponsorships, get labor deals done. All of that is the reason why they make so much money, and they should, and their deputies ought to get paid more. But when it comes to a blanket statement, do you know who wouldn't make that statement to Ron DeSantis? A commissioner who has a labor law background, who knows the rules of baseball better than any owner knows them. If you think for 1 minute Rob Manfred made a promise and said that as commissioner, we're not allowing Tampa to move out of Tampa. Nope, didn't happen that way. Couldn't happen that way. Wouldn't happen that way. DeSantis has been doubling down on that fact, using it as an example to gain what he thinks is leverage. The thing is, the leverage is always with the team. The team has the right, working in concert with his partners, to figure out that which he wants to do and will do. I don't know whether the Rays will stay in St. Petersburg. No. I do believe the Rays have a good chance to stay in Tampa. Yes. There's a great chance they'll probably be sold soon. But under all scenarios, the state will have to participate. They will. And there is no guarantee that the Rays will stay in Florida long term. None.